Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of Explore and Engage with Anam. 2026, that's next year, there's going to be an election, and I'm talking about the gubernatorial race in Michigan. Right now, Gretchen Whitmer is the governor of Michigan. She cannot run for re-election because of term limit. So there's an open seat that both Republicans and Democrats will try to win. Right now, it's a Democrat governor, Gretchen Whitmer. So there's going to be an opportunity for Republicans to win the governor's office in the state of Michigan. Now, Michigan politics is not easy to understand. Let's just recap the 2024 election results. In Michigan, in November 2024, President Trump won. He got the 15 electoral college votes from Michigan. He got 49.7% of the votes in the general election in November 2024. And Kamala Harris received 48.3% of the votes. So Donald Trump received more than 2.8 million votes in the state of Michigan. More than 2.8 million votes. So that probably gives us some hope, us meaning the Republicans. That probably gives the Republicans some hope about winning the gubernatorial race in Michigan next year. But the reality is more complicated. That same month, in November 2024, there was also a race for the U.S. Senate in Michigan, and that's a statewide race for U.S. Senate. And while Donald Trump won the presidential race in Michigan, the GOP Senate candidate Mike Rogers lost his race. The winner of the U.S. Senate race in Michigan in November was Elissa Slotkin with 48.6% of the votes. Now, it must be noted that Elissa Slotkin won the Senate race by getting just over 2.7 million votes. So that's the Democrat candidate, Elissa Slotkin. She won the Senate race in November 2024 by receiving just over 2.7 million votes, while Donald Trump won the state of Michigan in the presidential race by getting more than 2.8 million votes. So that means President Trump's victory in that race was overwhelming victory, major victory, massive victory. And there probably were voters who voted for Donald Trump at the top of the ticket in Michigan. But maybe they were not so interested in the U.S. Senate race. So they were more interested in the presidential race, and people went and voted overwhelmingly. But they were not so much interested in the U.S. Senate race. And so Kamala Harris, who lost to Donald Trump in Michigan, actually got more votes than Democrat U.S. Senate candidate Elissa Slotkin. That same year, same election, November 2024. So Kamala Harris lost, but still got more votes than Elissa Slotkin. And Elissa Slotkin won the U.S. Senate race in Michigan. So that means that the interest that people had about the presidential election was significantly more than the U.S. Senate race in that same state. And Mike Rogers, the Republican candidate who lost the race, got less than 2.7 million votes. So this can be a challenge for the Republicans in Michigan. If Donald J. Trump is not on the ticket, if he's not on the ballot, if he is not on the ballot, then it is hard to win a statewide race in Michigan for the Republicans. And that's how Michigan has 2 Democrat U.S. senators and 1 Democrat governor. So Donald Trump can win Michigan. But when Donald J. Trump is not on the ballot, it is difficult for the Republicans to win a statewide race in Michigan. Now, there's good news. And that good news is there's a solid Republican, a very strong Republican who announced his candidacy for governor for 2026. I'm talking about Congressman John James. He announced it already. Congressman John James is running for governor of the great state of Michigan. And John James said, and these are his words, he said, faith and family, God and country, service before self, Michigan first. Wonderful words from John James. He wants to make Michigan great again, and that is wonderful. This slogan, Make America Great Again, this slogan has inspired a new generation of leadership. This idea that we can take something and make it great again. We can look at our country and we can work on making it great again. This has inspired a new generation of leaders. So at the national level, President Donald J. Trump is the leader. And he is making America great again. And at the state level also, there are Republicans who are trying to make their states great again. So, Congressman John James, he has decided that he is going to run for the governor. He's going to run for the office of the governor in the state of Michigan. And he wants to make Michigan great again. This is great. This is wonderful. We need energy. We need enthusiasm. And John James, it seems to me, he's got a lot of energy, and he's going to work very hard to make it happen, to win the gubernatorial race in Michigan, and to make Michigan great again. Michigan has suffered a lot because of Democrat policies, left-wing policies, and now there is hope that the American people can make Michigan great again if the voters in Michigan elect a Republican governor. And of course, a Republican U.S. Senator, which I will discuss later. I will also talk about the U.S. Senate race in Michigan. That's also coming up in 2026. These are 2 very important races in Michigan that are coming up in 2026. So, regarding the governor's race, John James, I believe, will be a strong candidate. I hope that he can win. I have not met John James personally, but I do know that he supports our president, Donald J. Trump. And now there's going to be a primary. I'm sure there's going to be a primary, a Republican primary. Now, how heated the primary will be, I don't know. There'll be other candidates. I think there are already other candidates who are running for governor in Michigan, other Republican candidates. But whatever happens, I hope that the Republicans will be able to unite and support the eventual nominee. And it's quite likely that John James is going to be that nominee. Now, there's no way to predict, there's no way to guarantee an outcome, but John James is an incumbent congressman, and he may become the eventual nominee in the governor's race, the Republican nominee. So far, I have not seen any endorsement from President Trump for this gubernatorial race. I think it's too early, so we cannot assume anything. But I do know that President Trump endorsed John James for U.S. House seat in 2022, and that is what gives me the confidence. I've said that I've never met John James in person, but the fact that President Trump endorsed John James for U.S. House seat in 2022, that tells me that John James is going to be a strong candidate for the gubernatorial race. So let's see what happens. Let's see if President Trump is going to make any endorsement in this race. There's still a lot of time. This is still April of 2025, and this election is in November of 2026. There's a lot of time between now and November 2026. So let's wait and see what happens. But this is going to be an interesting race to watch. It'll be a very interesting one. Like I said, this is an opportunity for the Republicans to win that gubernatorial race. And there's an opportunity for the people of Michigan to elect a Republican governor. Now let's see what happens. So stay connected with me, my friends, and I thank you for continuing to listen to my podcast, and I hope to be back again soon with a new episode of Explore and Engage with Anam.